if you live on a block and there is one just incredible house on the block, well, that's a cool house on a block. But if you go to this block and every single house is epic on the block, you're like, well, damn, that's the block party I want to go to. That's where I want to be. And that's like the Napa Valley. If there was only, and Napa Valley and just, the wine industry, if there was like in Napa Valley, if there was only one winery that made amazing wine, Napa Valley's not Napa Valley. Why is the Napa Valley so cool? Because there's so much good wine. And I really feel like, in 2025, I think people are starting to get that. Like it's not. Yeah, I want to make really good wine, but it's less so of a competition than it is let's all see what we can do. And I think too, it's like if there's no way you're going to make the same wine if you don't have the same fruit. And so it's like, I am the most open wine book. I'm the most open book winemaker you'll ever meet. You want my recipe? Here it is. I'll tell you exactly how we make our wine and how we extract, because I want people to understand our style and what we're trying to achieve, and it's not a secret.
All right, welcome everybody back to the Barrels and Roots podcast. My name's Sean, and Sean Trace, and I'm your host today. It's morning for me, and I'm just getting my brain turned on, so I apologize to anyone for anything that I might say wrong today. But this is the Barrels and Roots podcast, and I've got a great guest with me today. Would you like to tell people who you are and a little bit about what you do?
Sure. My name is Jeff Plant. I am the estate winemaker at Round Pond Estate in Rutherford, kind of in the heart of the Napa Valley. And I've been playing the game since 2002. And I can't seem to get away from it. Making wine is fun. And if you're not having fun doing it, you're doing the wrong thing.
See, now that's the attitude I like, man. That's anything in life, though, right? If you're not having fun, why are you even doing it?
We spend so much time at work and pour so much of our heart into what we're doing. Yeah, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, life's too short to be spinning the wheels and on the racetrack. So,
right, and I think that's a lesson. We've been talking about a lot of times. I started this podcast because I grew up in the Valley. I grew up in the Napa Valley. High school and college there, and part of what I loved was the culture of winemaking. Seeing it, like you seeing the different stages throughout the year, seeing how everything was done, seeing in the wintertime where everything's pruned back and it's all dormant. In the spring, as everything starts to bloom, seeing the mustard seeds come up, the mustard flowers come up, going through the summer, watching all the things. And then by the time you get to harvest and everyone starts doing the crush, it's just like, man, the whole valley is fragrant and and people are festive in these times. People are working their butts off, but there's this whole thing to it. And one of the things that I always recognize is it was very, 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 very rare that I ever met anyone who wasn't enjoying what they were doing. Like people loved this,
Not many people are making millions of dollars doing this. Some of the owners for sure, but the people who are physically making the wine, they're doing it because they love it. And that's what really draws most people to this industry. I was listening to one of your previous podcasts with Kyle, and I love that he talked about so many people, this is their second career, owners and winemakers. And very rarely do you hear people being like, oh, I used to be a winemaker. I thought that really resonated with me. And I reflected on that. And I was like, I don't know a lot of people that have left the wine industry. I know more people that have come to the wine industry. And I think that says a lot about, the people that are in the industry are truly enjoying what they're doing. And, that's special.
What sparked your curiosity about winemaking in the first place? And, when did it shift from just being this thing that was interesting into you knew it was for you?
Yeah. So, similar to you, Sean, I grew up in St. Helena, graduated high school in 2001. St. Helena was a pretty magical place in the 90s in terms of, it was a tourist town, but was not kind of the tourist town that it is today. Not saying that St. Helena was any better or worse than it was, 20, 30 years ago, but it's just changed a little bit. And in the 90s, I could not imagine a better, more fun place to grow up. And my friends and I, our parents, in middle school and high school, it's like, all right, be home when it's dark. And they would turn us loose. And
Yeah.
there's probably not a vineyard road that we haven't biked down, like growing up in St. Helena. And so I kind of grew up surrounded by the culture of wine. I had friends' dads that were winemakers. My dad was a landscape architect, so he designed wineries, gardens, but he was not in the production. That's kind of what brought our family to St. Helena in 1989. Was the majority of my dad's business was up here. So that's how I got our family roots kind of put down in St. Helena. And then growing up, I was a young kid who was having tons of fun mountain biking and just living his best life. And so I had no idea as a 19-year-old what I wanted to study, but I knew I needed to get out of town and go do the college deal. So I went down to Cuesta Junior College down in San Luis Obispo and spent a year down there. And I found that it was just hard to get engaged in chemistry class, in microeconomics. Like, why am I taking these classes? I have no idea. They're not helping me in my day-to-day life. I understand I needed to get a degree and an education to make money, but it's so hard to go to class and force yourself to learn things that you have no idea how they're going to be used, or even like, is it that fascinating? I'm interested in economics, but it's hard to sit through a college economics class, So after spending 3 semesters, and I mean, my true focus was really more at that time on mountain biking and sunbathing as a 19-year-old down in San Luis Obispo. So I was like, you know what? I think I need to come home, reset, and kind of figure out what I want to study and what direction I want to move in. So I came home like August 2002, back to St. Helena, and just reached out to some family friends. It was like, I need a job. I know harvest is coming up. It looks super cool with forklifts and the energy and there's just literally like an electric buzz during harvest. And so we had a family friend, Bob Egelhoff, who was a winemaker for a lot of small different wineries. And he ended up having great success later on in his career, ended up like 100-point wine and his life was made type of deal. But he was good friends with Tom Rinaldi, who was on his bocce ball team. And he reached out to Tom and said, Tom, I've got this great young kid who's looking for a job. And this is St. Helena. This town is so small.
Yeah.
Tom Rinaldi's wife, Miss Kinney, was my middle school history teacher. You know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
oh yeah, Jeff's a great guy. Like, let's bring him on. And so I had the opportunity. That was at Provenance. And Provenance had just bought the winery. I think it was Buchanan in Rutherford. And so this was going to be their first crush at this new winery. They had been doing some custom crush the previous years. I don't know if for those listeners who are not familiar with Tom Rinaldi was like the founding winemaker for Duckhorn and made wine with Duckhorn for over 25 years. So a legend in the Valley for sure. And just, he was like, come on, let's come work harvest. And so I entered the harvest team. We were a team of like 5 or 6 guys. And I got to do everything. I was driving the forklift. I was making additions. I was doing inoculations. And for the first time in my life, I was like, holy smokes, I am learning so much. This is so cool to harvest something from a grapevine and then in 3 weeks' time, turn it into wine. And the things you do during those 3 weeks are going to influence that wine as to what kind of wine it's going to be. I was like, holy smokes, this is not only cool, this is like extremely fascinating, and it's science and it's art. And I was the first time in my life I ever was like, wow, I am excited to learn and I am having a ton of fun working. Beats the heck out of making sandwiches or cost plus or whatever other, whatever other jobs I had done, which are cool jobs, but not engaging or didn't tick the box that I was looking for. So worked harvest, and after harvest, they said, we've got a full-time position if you want to stay on. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Yes, let's stay on. And so I just was kind of in the like this really cool, fun environment. Occasionally there was a beer at lunch, and I was like, "Whoa, a beer at lunch? Like this is unheard of." Coming from like working at Cost Plus in a college town.
Yeah.
So it was just super, super fun. And I spent 4 years at Provenance, got to work with Chris Cooney. I think he's now the winemaker at Realm Estate, but has been at Donna, just a really bright young kid out of Davis. And I just kind of had the ultimate mentors to get me excited about what the industry can be. And I had teachers who were like, "We're not teaching you how to do something. We're going to teach you why we're doing something." And I just think in life that's
Ooh,
so important. It's like you don't need to know how to do it. It's why are we doing this? W- Why are we adding
that's
nutrients?
powerful.
You know?
Yeah, that's right. Because like the so much of education is just do this, do this, do this, do this, and if you teach someone the how and the why, there's this deeper level of understanding, you think about something as simple as you take a kid, right? All right, we need to look both ways before crossing the street. Look both ways before, and every time you go out and you tell the kid, look both ways before crossing the street, look both ways before crossing the street. And they do it, right? But they're not really invested in it. They're like,
Yeah.
eh. And then one day a car comes whipping along and they're just like, whoa. And you're like, okay, let's talk now. Let's see why you need to do that. You need to look both ways because you're going to get blindsided if you don't. Well, that's really actionable stuff. And they're like, I saw this video the other day. My Instagram feed is a very weird place at this point in time, but it was it was this video. It was like how they're teaching kids in Japan about road safety, and it had a bunch of Japanese kids sitting there in their little school uniforms, and they have this mannequin in the road, and then a car comes flying along and just plows into the mannequin. All the kids are like, whoa, check that out. And it just like is like the shape of the size of a kid, and the mannequin goes flying down the street. And well, the reason they're doing this, and they're like, and this comedian comes on and she's like, teaching kids through trauma. But it, like all these people in the comments were like, no, you're teaching kids the why. Like
Yeah.
there's a why
Yeah.
there. You look both ways before you cross the street because you don't want to just get hammered, And I mean, I'm using a weird, funny example, but that's so much more
Applicable.
powerful.
Yeah.
It is,
Yeah. So just being in an environment like that, it's where you're able to learn so much. It was. I had no desire to go back to college at that point in time to, go back to economic studies, if you will. So, yeah, it was just, I was super fortunate to land at the right place with the right people.
Yeah.
And it really helped set me up for how I, carry on with my team to this day. I think of myself as much of a winemaker. I think of myself as a mentor. I want
I
to
love
set
that.
up the people underneath me for success. I want to make sure that our assistant winemaker doesn't leave Round Pond for another assistant winemaker role. And if she does, amazing. But I want her to leave for that head winemaking role. And I want to make sure that I've given her all the tools that she needs to succeed. And a lot of that is, why are we doing all this stuff? So yeah,
That's
super,
awesome.
super fortunate early on to learn it's a standard operating procedure is important, but understanding why we're doing this procedure is even more important,
Yeah.
Um,
The and it's something interesting too, because mentors are so powerful and so important. Because when I was younger, I work in media and production now. I have my own media company. We make videos and stuff. And like, I remember when I came up and I was, learning photography, and I learned on film. And, and it wasn't cheap even when I was a kid. You go out and buy a roll of film, and, you didn't know what you were going to get. And it was like, I remember driving down to Target in Napa, dropping off my film at the Target, and then having to go back 3 days later to pick it up
yeah,
after they developed it. And sometimes I was like very happy with what I got. Sometimes I was like, oh man. Now, it was fun when I was just taking pictures of my friends. But later on, when I started getting into, well, what happens if you're filming a wedding or taking pictures of a wedding and you've got that one chance to get these moments right, it sure is helpful to have someone there who's like, what are your settings? What are you doing right now? You got that? Oh, hey,
Yeah.
let's change this setting because it's just going to give you a better look. The sun's a bit bright right now. Maybe we should change this right now.
Yeah.
And, and they weren't telling me what to do when I was taking these pictures, but my mentor was coming around and saying, hey, you know what I'd recommend? I'd try this out.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. And those things, those little things, they're just helpful because, in an industry like winemaking, mistakes, I would think could be quite costly,
Yeah. And I think, so you've got a quarter-second shutter speed. Why did you select that shutter speed? Is there a reason?
Right.
And so like I always want my assistant winemaker to ask questions, to almost challenge me. Why are we adjusting our yan? Why are we adjusting our nitrogen that the yeast are going to need to this level? Why would you not go lower or why would you not go higher? Well, let's talk it out. Let's have a conversation about it and talk about the pros and the cons. What are the risks of underfeeding? What are the risks of overfeeding? And then let's try to make the most informed decision. I really believe like in collaboration, and if you are a one-man band, sure, you're going to have some solos that are pretty great, but often the best bands in the world, they've got a support cast, and it's not a one-person show, and it's like harmony often sounds better than the solo, and so trying to find and build a team where people want to challenge you. Why are you sure you want to do this? And then also build an environment where people feel comfortable, asking questions or suggesting or being like, I know you said to do this, but this doesn't quite look right and it doesn't feel right. Oh my God, thank God you brought us out here and let's take a look and let's taste and let's talk about it. So to finish to circle way back on how I got into wine.
I love it.
It's like, I spent 4 years at Provenance, kind of felt like I didn't have an opportunity to become a cellar master there. They had a cellar master that was seasoned, not going anywhere. So I was looking for more growth. I've always been a very goal-driven person where I've got to have something I'm constantly working towards. And so after spending time in the cellar, I decided I wanted to become a cellar master. And then I moved over to Stag's Leap Wine Cellars, where I spent 9 years there. Really, I feel like mastering my craft of high-end wine production at scale. They do a phenomenal job of making a lot of good wine. And then in 2015, I joined the Pond, Round Pond. And I was hired on as cellar master. I took some wine chemistry, microbiology classes at Napa Valley College, but that's it. That's my education. And, I've got a couple viticulture classes, but I am the fake it till you make it kind of guy. And I believe you don't need to know everything. And often the people who think they know everything are the ones that get themselves in more trouble or have less success. And I've always been super humble of, I know when I have a question, I'm going to raise my hand and I'm going to ask a question and I'm going to reach out to other people and I'm not going to be bashful about, maybe someone be like, you should know that. Or I'm surprised you feel comfortable asking that question. And I'm like, I have no shame in just laying it out. Hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I think. What do you guys think? And so I've really found that, by putting yourself out there and not being like arrogant and like, I'm the winemaker, I know everything. It's like, no, you're not always going to have every answer. And so, building a collaborative team and just being humble and know that, it's okay not to know everything. As long as you know when you need to ask for help, that's the key. That's the real key. Because there's a lot of people in this world that want to see other people succeed. And I'm one of those. We're all in this boat together.
Yeah. I love that. I truly believe that that's so important. I have a team that does a lot of video editing for me, and I train them and I mentor them. But then sometimes I will definitely let them take the lead, and I will be like, um, we're doing this. I trained you with the basics, but you need to get out and stretch your wings. And they're like, well, can I try this? And I'm like, yes, see how it goes. And if you run into a problem, then we figure out how to fix it together. Like,
Yeah.
if you're not stretching, if you're not growing, and if I'm not, guiding you on some, things, then we're not really in this creative space. And it's also arrogant of me to think that I have all the answers. You know what I mean? There might be things
Yeah.
that are tried that I'm just like surprised by, like, damn, I didn't know you could do that. I was training my workers on this one workflow, and it was a good workflow. And then suddenly one of my workers, and I love her to pieces, and she's the laziest worker I have, but not in a bad way. She is lazy in the fact that she tries to seek out solutions of ways to do things that are more efficient so she can save time and save energy. And she came up with this one solution that every time we were making a video and we had to put captions on it, I was having them go in and recreate the captions. And she's like, we can copy paste settings, right? And I was just like, I did not know
Yeah.
that we could do that for this app. And it was just like amazing. It saved our entire
Yeah.
team massive amounts of time on their workflow. And, but again, it wouldn't have been able to happen if I hadn't have given them the ability to go out and try to feel things out, to see how things were going, to see where they could go if they were putting their energy into it,
Yeah. No, that's the cool. I mean, everyone sees things a little bit differently. Everyone's brain processes a little bit differently. And the more brains you've got working on one problem, the more brain power you've got, and probably the easier you're going to find a solution that works well.
Right?
Yeah.
I love that. I love it because it's like, even though it sounds really basic, like, a lot of people don't do that. There's a lot of people that are like that top down approach, and
especially in winemaking.
Really, tell me about that.
Because it's like, I think now there's more collaboration than ever, but I like to, and I don't knock the old guard. The old guard, the winemakers that were in charge in the 90s and 2000s, they helped elevate Napa Valley to what we are today. And they've made incredible wines, and they're amazing stewards and passing the torch. But I do feel like in the 90s, winemakers had their little black book. That was their recipe. And these are the barrels I'm using, but I don't really want you to know what barrels I'm using, because I don't want you to have the exact same wine that we have. And this is how I'm going to run my extraction. This is how my pump overs are going to work during harvest. And I don't really want you to know what I'm doing, because I don't want you to copy me. And so I really feel like once upon a time, and I even saw this when I got in the industry in 2002, but there was a lot less information sharing. And now I feel like with kind of a younger generation starting to take the helm of all these winemaking roles across, the United States and abroad, that everyone's kind of learning that, like, if we all make better wine, it's better for everybody. And, the beginning of this season, I saw something that when we were racking some Chardonnay, that the lees was slightly reduced. And so we knew we're not going to add any of those lees back. And this was for a sparkling wine that we're making. The juice is totally fine. We settled out the lees that had a hint of reduction. But you better believe I called all my friends that were making sparkling wine, and I said, hey guys, just want to let you know this was my observation. I'm not saying you're going to have this problem, but this was my observation. So you might want to keep an extra keen eye when you guys start racking your Chardonnay for the first couple lots. And everyone was like, oh my God, thank you so much. This is such a great insight information. And so, I think that there's more collaboration ever now than there has been. And I think one of my, like, if you live on a block and there is one just incredible house on the block, well, that's a cool house on a block. But if you go to this block and every single house is epic on the block, you're like, well, damn, that's the block party I want to go to. That's where I want to be. And that's like the Napa Valley. If there was and Napa Valley and just the wine industry, if there was like in Napa Valley, if there was only one winery that made amazing wine. Napa Valley's not Napa Valley. Why is the Napa Valley so cool? Because there's so much good wine. And I really feel like, in 2025, I think people are starting to get that. Like it's not. Yeah, I want to make really good wine, but it's less so of a competition than it is let's all see what we can do. And I think too, is like, if there's no way you're going to make the same wine if you don't have the same fruit. And so it's like, I am the most open wine book. I'm the most open book winemaker you'll ever meet. You want my recipe? Here it is. I'll tell you exactly how we make our wine and how we extract, because I want people to understand our style and what we're trying to achieve, and it's not a secret.
I'm I'm a big MMA fan, and I'm a black belt in Japanese style jiu-jitsu, which is like kind of like judo, and I do Muay Thai, 3 times a week with my daughter. We love to go and train. And I remember in the early UFC, it reminded me of what you're talking about. Every gym had their secret, and it was like, these are our secret techniques, And then, like, in those early fights, one dude came out with a glove. I remember one of the first UFCs. There was a guy, it was a boxer. He came out one hand, no glove, one hand, a glove. And he was like trying to punch with the glove and grab with the other hand. And then there was like, guys that were just pure jujitsu, pure wrestling, pure this and pure that. And one of the things that you found is that there were a lot of people who were good, but not great. And they were, in the gap between them was very far. And what you started noticing is that there started to emerge this collaboration. And you would get these, now you get a modern MMA fighter, and there's a couple things that they do. Everyone studies wrestling to defend against takedowns. Everyone has a jiu-jitsu base to like help with ground fighting. Everyone has boxing and Muay Thai for striking. Now, once you understand that, you can create like kind of the modern remedy, like prescription to be a great fighter. But you know what's crazy? Is there's still variance. There's still, between gyms, different ways people do things, and the overall level has increased. All of these guys have gotten really, really, really good. Like any single one of these fighters in this division could completely dominate in the original like UFC. Like they would dominate back then. But the reality is like it came about from everyone sharing, from a collaboration, and this like, let's raise the bar collectively. And the crazy thing is like, oh, those, you see the Kung Fu movies, you will steal our secrets, like never go to another gym and share the Wuhan flying bird technique, like, dude, really? Like, I mean, come on, it's just like you going like this, and maybe it worked. I remember, I'm going to date myself here, but the Karate Kid, crane kick, it's like, never once did anyone think that could work. But then, dude, Lyoto Machida busted that out in the middle of the UFC competition. We're like, dude, that was a Karate Kid kick. It wasn't secret, Yeah. And the reality is like when people started sharing things, everything gets better. The standards get better. But let me ask you about your approach to winemaking. And this is gonna be a fun, weird angle. But if your approach to wine had a character from a movie, who would it be and why? Are you gonna be, John McClane? Are you gonna be, I don't know, something soft and simple? Are you gonna be bold and bashing it? What's your character?
Man, that's a tough question. I would be a character that's got a team.
Okay.
I would be a character.
Someone on the Avengers.
Someone on the Avengers. Man,
describe it for me. We can find the superhero together, man.
All right. So this is somebody that does good, no evil. He pulls the team with him together and believes the best is yet to come.
Your Cap. Like your Captain America, man.
Yeah. The best is yet to come. I believe that wholeheartedly. So there you go, Captain America. But I'm bringing everybody with me.
Bringing everyone with you. That's awesome. What in your eyes, what gives wine its staying power in our culture? Why is this so important? Why is wine important? Which is, I think, an important question at this time in the industry,
Yeah. I think wine serves a lot of purposes. I think there's the terroir piece. Wine tells the story of a place and can bring you back to that place. And then I also think, they do make single servings of wine, but let's be honest, 99% of wine that is sold in a 750 liter format. That's not for you to take home and drink in the garage. I mean, and no, I don't knock you if you do, but that's made to be shared.
Yes.
Wine is made to be shared around a table with people and with food and with friends and with family. And wine, there's very few other things besides food that bring people together. And I think one of the most special things about wine is its intention is to bring people together. Its intention is to drive conversation. If it's a really good wine, it's going to provoke thought. So I think it's those two things, that a wine tells a story of a place and of a snapshot of a time capsule by like a vintage. And then it also brings people together. And there's not many things in this world that do that outside of food. And it brings enjoyment. It's there for celebrations. It can play such a constructive role in people's lives.
I love that. It is. It's like you don't sit there and say, hey, let's all open this bottle of beer and share it, but you do open up a bottle of wine and, like, hey, guys, I got this new bottle of wine and supposedly it's fantastic. And you sit down and everyone has an opinion. And, I had someone come on and said that wine was a social lubricant. And I love that, because we need that these days, man.
Yeah.
Everyone is up in arms. I mean, we got Thanksgiving coming up and, Uncle Bob is going to say some fun stuff at that table, man. And it's going to go wild.
I'm headed. I don't care what spectrum you're on. I don't care, but I'm doing that. I'm going to the in-laws this Thanksgiving that are on a different spectrum than my wife and I, and there will be some candid conversations that we try to avoid. But wine will help. The wine will help.
Wine will help. It does help. And that's the thing I tell people. Like, if we could get people on all sides of the political spectrum to sit down and have a glass of wine together, we probably would be just talk. That's the problem. Man.
There's not enough talking in this world. There's a lot of shouting, a lot of yelling. God, let's sit down and break bread and have a glass of wine, man. Yeah.
Right.
How was your morning? How was your day? Like, what happened today? Man, that's, going back to just family dinners, wine. It's what it's about. Stopping and reflecting.
Yes. I think that one of the guests came on and they were talking about how the younger generation has drifted away from wine, but it's also people have drifted away from socializing. People have drifted away from connectedness. You think about it, and I feel bad for, people that had to go to school during COVID. Like, these foundational social years were just suddenly, people not connecting with other people. And, and I think, go ahead.
More so than people have drifted away, I don't think they've found it. They've not had that one glass of wine that's been like, oh, wow, this is what wine can be. And so I think, to your point, COVID played a huge role in that and people not being social.
But I also want to point out something that shifted in the industry. Like, I grew up in St. Helena in the 90s and early 2000s as well, and I remember my family lived up in Angwin and we would come down and Saturday night, we would go down, Friday night, whatever, we'd go down to Peter's Video, get a little video down there because there was Peter's Video and, Peter would be sitting behind there.
Please rewind.
Yep, behind that, and he'd tell you all the good videos, and then we'd roll over to what at that point in time was Tomatina's, grab a pizza, and it was just and Junie's sandwiches were like $5,
yeah,
and and I'm not hating on the change, but yet the wine industry, I know everything got really expensive. And what I want to remind people, I remember when I moved back to the Valley after I had lived away for a long time, and I worked at one big resort before I moved back to Asia. And when I had my manager come up to me and she said, we are here to be friendly, not familiar. We are here to be seen, not heard. And I was just like, whoa, when did we get here? When did we get here to this place of like, you know what? Part of the charm that was the Napa Valley was this community, was that these people, that wine was approachable, that you would go into a wine room and there would be people from all walks of life in there enjoying this process and enjoying this beautiful, beautiful thing. And, on a pure economic basis, I know everyone wants to sell to really rich people. That's great. They've got a lot of money to spend. But the rest of the reality is that wine should be approachable. It should be something that everyone, and it's an intimidating thing because you have this learning curve where you walk in and you're like, wow, there's different types of wine, red and whites.
Yeah.
I remember one of my first jobs in the Valley. I worked at Meadowood at the Pool Terrace Cafe at a summer in college. And I was there, and I knew nothing about wine. And my boss was like, all right, kid, what do you know about wine? And I was like, it's from a grape. And he's like, all right, this is going to be tough, but let's do this. And he's like, all right, 2 glasses. This is a red, this is a white. Taste them. And I was just like, all right, this one feels a little stronger, heavier, right? And he's like, taste this. I was like, that's really light. He's like, boom, first wine lesson. He's like, reds kind of are a little bit more bold. And he's like, whites are a little bit smoother. And he's like, welcome to the world of wine. I was like, wow. And he's like, that's literally what you need to know for the next 2 weeks. He's like, go out and work with that. And he's like, and I was like, well, what I need to do is tell him this one's more bold and this one's more light. And he's like, oh, that's all I got to do for right now. He's like, for what you're doing, for what you're selling. Yeah, that's fine, man. And I was going out and then, and he's like, all right, next lesson, let's try some different types of red. And it was just so simple, so smooth and so approachable that it was easy, and it didn't have to feel intimidating. And I love that. I love this ability to kind of get people through the door because I think when you have something, there's this prestigious long tradition, and Hollywood doesn't help out the wine industry. Like, hello, Buffy, welcome to my wine cellar, and you're like, gosh, wow, and it's like, I think we need to rebrand. Like, wine is this thing, like this thing that is unifying, is a bringer together of people. And I hope that if there are people in the marketing sector that listen to these conversations, it's a recognition of like, wine's for everyone, man.
No, it needs to be accessible, for all walks.
Yeah.
And, thankfully, with the correction in the industry that we're kind of seeing right now, there are some prices coming down. It's been the first time and probably decades, the price of wine is coming down, not going up. And, I know the inputs are challenging right now with labor and tariffs, but it is, from a consumer standpoint, it's kind of about time that prices stopped going up for a minute, I think, as I am all for someone learning about wine and then coming to Napa Valley, you know what I mean? Like, nobody can afford to learn drinking $50 bottles of wine, So, like, especially the younger generation, like, learn wine, and like, you can go get a ripper $10 bottle of wine at a wine shop or Costco for sure. And then, you can educate yourself. So when you're ready to spend 30, 40, $50, you feel like you're making an informed decision that you're going to be excited to try, rather than, oh, crap, I just spent $30 on this bottle. And if it's not good, my wife is going to kill me. And so I think we all have a job to kind of shepherd in this younger gen. No, you don't have to go drink $100 bottles of wine. You can go get an amazing $10 bottle of wine and get yourself excited about wine.
Yeah.
I've got family members that have a hard time drinking our Cabernet because it's so big and they don't like really big wines. And I'm like, I'm not offended. The fact that you like
Yeah.
wine is amazing. Like, to each their own. If your favorite wine is out of a box, I don't knock it. It's because you like wine. That's totally fine.
I love that. And it leads into like the people have to start somewhere, and
Yeah.
I think that, and telling people that and going out, last night in my conversation, we talked about Peter's video, and I referenced back to those old video like shops where you would go in there and my guest said, go find a local wine shop and just talk to them, tell them what you like, and just start sharing, hey, this is where I'm at. This is what would you recommend? Because they're going to be able to say, oh, dude, you like to try this, try this.
You want something
Start
juicy? Ooh, yeah, I got something juicy for you. No, light tannin. This is, let me show you this Malbec. This is going to be really fun for you.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, for someone who's new to wine, what's a simple mindset that can make the experience more enjoyable and less intimidating?
There are too many people in this wine industry that use words nobody can follow. And especially winemakers, they're the ones guilty as charged more than anybody else. And I really think when people are learning wine, let's just simplify it. How's the fruit? How's the acid? How's the tannin? It's 3 simple things. Is it fruity? Okay. Do you like the fruitiness? Too much fruity? You want more fruity? What do you think about the acid? Is it a red wine that has a nice clean finish, or do you feel it's a little flat on the back? Is the tannin? What's tannin? Tannin's what turns your mouth inside out. So ever go taste some scotch. That's got some good tannin in it, and just trying to simplify things so people are along for the ride. I want you to pick up what I'm putting down, and I can have an informed conversation with somebody who's drinking wine for the first time. I really think that wine can be very simple. And then we've got at Round Pond, we have a somm who works upstairs as part of our wine education team. And I asked him, I was like, when you get people in here who don't know wine, but they want to learn wine, and because I get this question, how do I tell the difference between a $50 cab and a $150 cab from a qualitative standpoint? They're both dark. Like, I'm having a hard time deciphering, like, qualitatively by taste. And he's like, there's one simple thing you can do with red wines. How long is the finish? How long does the finish stay with you? Are you still pulling flavors 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute after? Because a really, really good wine, the finish just is endless, and you will constantly just keep pulling new flavors out. And I was like, wow, that is so true. And it's so simple for somebody to follow, is just evaluate the finish on the wine. So that totally resonated with me. And I love using that when I'm trying to, Round Pond makes a $50 bottle of cab and we make a $250 bottle of cab. And it's easy for people to get lost as to what do you like and where do you want to go?
I love that. I love that in simplifying things, because I remember I went to one tasting. Yeah, and I was just like, and the guy was like, yes, do you taste the subtle hints of tobacco? And I was like, this has tobacco in it? Like,
I didn't see the government warning on the front label that had tobacco in it.
What do you mean it has tobacco?
Yeah.
And like, now this one, I can taste a leathery finish. And I was just like,
yeah,
someone's putting leather in here? And you're like, it was just like, then suddenly my friend was like, nah, dude, they just describing, that's the flavors that are inspiring this guy. And I was like, oh, that makes more sense. And, and like, it was just because I think that it's like the idea is just like, hey, we're just describing what it reminds you of, describing, that type of thing. But I love that, talking about the finish, because that is so true. There are some things, and that's with so many good foods. I was having this dish the other day. We went to a Korean restaurant, and they have this one, like when you're at the Korean restaurant, they have all these little side serving dishes, like, right, for Korean barbecue. And there was this one dish that was thinly sliced onions in a vinegar sauce with wasabi on top. You stir it up, and man, it wasn't just the wasabi. The flavors lasted. And I just was like, I turned to look at my wife and I was like, I haven't had something that just had this long residual taste in a long time. And she's like, it's special, isn't it? And I don't know what it was that they did, but that's powerful, you know? No worries. I got one last question for you.
Yeah.
Two questions, quick. Looking back, if you could teach your younger self one thing about wine early on, what would you teach yourself?
You can learn as much from success as you can from problems. And so I think often, and I started out as in the cellar. And so I saw a lot of problems that weren't necessarily my doing, but maybe a winemaker maybe didn't make made not necessarily the wrong decision, but made a decision that didn't have the impact they were looking for. And so I think, we're kind of trained as to like everything needs to go right all the time. And we learn when things go right all the time. It's like, no, actually, you probably learn more when things don't go quite right, especially if you can understand why did they not go quite right. And so I really think there's like in our culture, there's so much, like failure is not an option. And, you've come up short if you didn't get 100 out of 100. And it's like, no, like if you come up short once or twice and you learn from each one of those experiences, well, now you've got more experience than you would have ever had if you never had any issues. And it can help you anticipate things that may happen. And so I think I was always just like, I was always got super excited when everything was going perfect. And when things didn't go quite right, I was less ready to embrace, well, why, like what caused this? And so I think there's so much that can be learned from one's growth, not just in what went right, but what didn't go quite right. We've got a mantra in our cellar is we will never make our best bottle of wine because next year is an opportunity to make a better bottle.
Ooh,
and
I love
we
that.
will never, ever make our best bottle of wine because we're going to do it better next year. And so every single year we pride ourselves on our success, but we are super hypercritical as like, where can we like finesse or where can we make incremental changes that may improve quality? And often, 10 little incremental changes over years can end up being a huge impact on your final result. And so we are always constantly evaluating everything we're doing.
I love that. Well, where can people come and find out more about you and what you're doing?
I am at Round Pond Monday through Friday, boots on the ground. Come taste at Round Pond. Please come visit us. And when you're tasting, let your host know, hey, I listened to Jeff on Barrels and Roots. If he's got a minute, I'd love to pop up and have a conversation. My favorite thing in the whole world is talking to people who like wine. It's fun to make it. It's really fun to make it. It's even more fun to talk about it and to chop shop and just like, this is, we're on a roller coaster of of life. And, I just feel lucky that we get to talk about something we enjoy. So that's where people can find me personally. I'm on LinkedIn if you want to message me. And I'm chasing 2 little kids around soccer fields on the weekend.